Dad perfect events. I changed my pension account information and started getting my retirement checks on a new debit card. When I got home the Thursday afternoon, my son Eugene and his wife Nancy were already waiting in my living room, their faces red with fury. "Dad, have you lost your mind?" Eugene screamed at me. "We nearly had a heart attack at the ATM this morning." But after I calmly placed 47 pages of bank statements on the coffee table, showing exactly how they'd been draining my accounts for 3 years, both of them went dead silent and turned white as sheets. I'm Gerald Fisher, 62 years old, and this is how I finally stood up to my own family after they nearly destroyed me. The whole mess started 3 years ago when my wife Dorothy died. We'd been married 35 years, built a good life together in Milwaukee. I'd worked as an electrician at the Midwest Industrial Plant for 35 years, started when I was 27, worked my way up to supervisor. Dorothy was a nurse at St. Mary's Hospital before she retired. We were planning to enjoy our golden years together, maybe take that RV trip across the country we'd always talked about. Then one morning in April 2021, Dorothy had a heart attack while watering her flowers in the backyard. Just like that, she was gone. 35 years of marriage, over in an instant. I found her there by her roses, the hose still running, water pooling around her feet. The grief hit me like a freight train. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't figure out how to keep going in that empty house we'd shared for decades. Every room screamed her absence. Her coffee cup still sat on the counter. Her reading glasses were on the nightstand. The indent in the couch cushion where she used to sit while watching her evening shows. I stopped answering the phone when my old work buddy Vernon Walsh called to check on me. Stopped going to the VFW meetings. Stopped caring about much of anything except sitting in my chair, staring at the wall, trying to figure out how to keep, breathing without her. That's when Eugene showed up with Nancy and their suitcases about 6 months after the funeral. They'd been living in a small apartment across town, both of them struggling with work. Eugene had been laid off from his sales manager job. Nancy was working part-time retail. They were behind on rent, stressed about money. "Dad, we're worried about you living alone in this big house," Eugene said, putting his arm around my shoulders the way he used to when he was a kid. "What if you fall and nobody's here to help? What if you have a medical emergency?" Nancy nodded along, her face full of concern. "We've been talking about it, Gerald. We think it would be good for all of us if we moved in for a while, just temporarily, until you're feeling stronger and we get back on our feet." I looked around the empty house. The silence was suffocating. Having voices, having people around again, sounded like a lifeline. "Nancy and I can help with cooking, cleaning, all of it," Eugene continued. "You wouldn't have to worry about maintaining this place by yourself. And we'd be here if you needed us, day or night. I should have seen the red flags, should have wondered why they needed to move in so quickly, why they had suitcases already packed, why they seemed so eager to help when they'd barely visited in the months after Dorothy's funeral. But grief makes you stupid, desperate for any kind of companionship in a house that felt like a tomb. "Okay," I heard myself say. "Yes, that would be good." Eugene's face lit up with relief. Nancy hugged me tight. "You won't regret this, Gerald. We're going to take such good care of you." They moved into the master bedroom the same day. My bedroom, the one Dorothy and I had shared for 35 years, where we'd talked late into the night, where I'd held her hand during her last illness, where I still expected to roll over and find her sleeping beside me. "You don't need all that space anymore, Dad," Eugene said, already carrying his clothes, into Dorothy's closet. "The guest room is perfect for you. Smaller, easier to heat, more practical." I moved into the small back room, the one where Dorothy used to sew, where she'd spent hours making quilts for charity. It had a twin bed, a small dresser, one window that looked out at the neighbor's fence. I told myself it was temporary, just until they got back on their feet. The first month wasn't terrible. Nancy cooked meals, not as good as Dorothy's, but edible. Eugene fixed a leaking faucet, mowed the lawn, changed light bulbs I couldn't reach. I felt useful helping with dishes, folding laundry, small tasks that made me feel like I was contributing to the household. But gradually, things started changing. The requests became more frequent, more demanding. Eugene would ask me to make breakfast since you're up early anyway, Dad. Then it was laundry. "You're home all day. Could you throw in a load?" Pretty soon I was cooking every meal, cleaning the bathrooms, vacuuming the living room, doing all the yard work. When I tried to watch my evening news programs, Nancy would change the channel to her reality shows. When I wanted to sit in my old chair, Eugene would already be there with his laptop. When I mentioned wanting to call Vernon or go to the VFW, Eugene would say I seemed tired, that I should rest instead. I was becoming invisible in my own home, a servant rather than the homeowner. But the worst was yet to come. 2 months in, Eugene came to me with this concerned look on his face. We were sitting at the kitchen table after dinner, Nancy washing dishes in the background. "Dad, I've been thinking about your finances," he said, pulling out some papers from a folder. "Managing money is getting really complicated these days, with all the online banking, digital payments, automatic withdrawals. Dorothy used to help you with that stuff, right?" I nodded. Dorothy had always been better with the computer, handled most of our online accounts. "Look, I've got my MBA. I understand financial systems," Eugene continued. "Why don't you let me take over your banking? I can set up automatic bill payments, monitor your accounts, make sure everything's running smoothly. You can focus on healing, on getting better." He spread out some official-looking documents across the table. Power of attorney forms, bank authorization papers, financial management agreements. The print was small, and the legal language was confusing, full of terms I didn't understand. "It's just temporary, Dad," Eugene assured me, pointing to signature lines. "This way I can pay your bills, handle the banking, transfer money when needed, and you don't have to stress about any of it. Nancy can help too. She's good with computers." Nancy looked over from the sink, smiling. "We just want to make things easier for you, Gerald. You've got enough to worry about right now." I stared at the papers, feeling overwhelmed. Managing finances without Dorothy did seem daunting. All those passwords, account, numbers, online systems I didn't really understand. And Eugene had gone to business school, had experience with this stuff. "I don't know," I said slowly. "That's my money, my accounts." "Of course it is," Eugene said quickly. "I'm not taking anything away from you. I'm just helping you manage it better. Look, we're already sharing household expenses anyway, right? This just makes it more organized, more efficient." He was right about that. They were eating my food, using my electricity, my water, my heat. It did seem logical to streamline things. "And Dad, honestly, I've noticed you seem a little confused sometimes about dates, appointments, that kind of thing. It's normal after what you've been through, but financial mistakes can be expensive. Had I been confused? Maybe." The grief fog made everything feel unclear sometimes. I picked up the pen with shaking hands and signed, one signature after another, authorizing Eugene to access my accounts, manage my money, make financial decisions on my behalf. I didn't read the fine print. I didn't ask questions. I just trusted my son to take care of me. Within 2 weeks, my entire Social Security check, $2,200 a month, was being deposited directly into an account Eugene controlled. And just like that, I no longer had access to my own money. The change was immediate. Suddenly, I had to ask permission for everything. $20 for coffee with Vernon? "Dad, you just bought coffee last week. $50 for a new pair of work boots? Do you really need those? The old ones look fine." But Eugene and Nancy's purchases never required discussion. New clothes appeared regularly. Expensive dinners out became routine. Dinners I wasn't invited to. "It's loud at those restaurants, Dad." "You wouldn't enjoy it," Nancy would say, checking her makeup in the hallway mirror. I started noticing things. Designer purses Nancy hadn't owned before. Eugene's new watch, new shoes, new electronics. The big screen TV that appeared in the living room one day. When I asked about it, Eugene waved me off. "Dad, we're using household money for household items. That TV is for all of us to enjoy." Except, I never got to choose what we watched. The worst part was watching my role in the house change completely. I wasn't the father, the homeowner, the man who'd worked 35 years to pay for this place. I was the hired help. Eugene would leave lists of chores for me. Clean the bathrooms, vacuum the carpets, do the laundry, iron his shirts for job interviews that never seemed to materialize. When I did the work, nobody thanked me. When I didn't do it fast enough, they criticized me. "Dad, you missed a spot on the bathroom mirror. The grass needs to be shorter. These shirts aren't pressed right." Nancy started posting photos on her social media accounts. Fancy restaurants, shopping trips, new jewelry, spa days with her friends. All of it paid for with my retirement money while I wore the same 3 shirts, rotating them through the wash. Cycle, asking permission to buy groceries for meals I'd cook for them. One evening, Nancy showed me her phone excitedly. "Look at this necklace I bought today, Gerald. Isn't it gorgeous?" The price tag was still attached. $1,200. My pension was $2,200 a month. She'd spent more than half of my monthly income on a piece of jewelry. Nancy, that's a lot of money, I said carefully. She frowned. It's not that much. Besides, Eugene said it was fine. We deserve nice things too, you know. We're working hard taking care of you. Taking care of me meant I did all the housework while they lived like royalty on my dime. The isolation got worse. When Vernon called, Eugene would answer and tell him I was sleeping or not feeling well. When neighbors stopped by, Nancy would say I was too tired for visitors. Gradually, my connections to the outside world were being severed, one relationship at a time. I was becoming a prisoner in my own home, and the worst part was I'd signed the papers that made it legal. The breaking point came in October 2024, almost 3 years after they had moved in. I was looking for some old electrical tools in Eugene's dresser. He'd borrowed them months ago to fix something and never returned them. I opened the bottom drawer and found a manila folder tucked beneath some sweaters. The tab on top read, Sunset Meadows, Assisted Living. My hands started shaking as I pulled it out. Inside was a glossy brochure with photos of elderly people in wheelchairs, sitting in common rooms, eating meals at long tables. The pricing sheet was paper-clipped to the back, starting at $3,800 per month. $3,800. My pension was only $2,200. How would I pay for that? I flipped to the next page and felt my blood turn cold. It was a medical evaluation form with my name on it, signed by Dr. Richard Coleman. The evaluation was dated 3 weeks earlier. I read it slowly, my heart hammering. Patient Gerald Fisher, 62 years old, shows signs of cognitive decline and confusion. Unable to manage daily activities independently, demonstrates memory loss and disorientation regarding current living situation. Recommendation, full evaluation for assisted living placement. 3 weeks ago, I tried to remember. Eugene had taken me to a medical clinic on the east side, said it was just a routine checkup required by Medicare. I'd been fighting a bad cold that week, took some heavy-duty cold medicine that morning because I was congested and felt terrible. The appointment had been short, maybe 15 minutes. A young doctor I had never met asked me a few basic questions while I was half asleep from the medication. What year was it? Who was the president? Where did I live? I'd answered, though my head was foggy from the medicine. He'd nodded, written something down, and sent me on my way. I hadn't thought about it since, but now I understood. They drugged me with cold medicine, waited until I was disoriented, then had some doctor evaluate me and declare me incompetent based on a 15-minute appointment while I was medicated. The next page made my stomach drop. It was a petition for guardianship, already filled out in Eugene's handwriting. Eugene Fisher requests appointment as legal guardian and conservator for Gerald Fisher, who is unable to manage his own affairs due to cognitive decline. At the bottom, a filing date, November 15th, 2024, less than a month away. The last page was a printed email between Eugene and Dr. Coleman. I read it twice, my chest getting tighter with each word. Dr. Coleman, thanks for agreeing to help with my father's evaluation. As we discussed, he's been declining rapidly since my mother passed. He's confused, forgetful, and I'm honestly worried he's not safe living independently anymore. I found a good facility that can provide the care he needs, but I'll need proper documentation to move forward with guardianship proceedings. I appreciate your cooperation in this matter. The doctor's response was brief. Eugene, happy to help. I'll document the cognitive issues we discussed. The evaluation will support your guardianship petition. Let me know if you need anything else. They'd planned this. Eugene and a doctor I'd never heard of had conspired to declare me mentally incompetent. They were going to have me locked away in an assisted living facility that cost more than my pension, then take control of my house, my remaining assets, everything Dorothy and I had worked 35 years to build. I sat on Eugene's bed, the folder open in my lap, and felt something I hadn't experienced in 3 years. Not grief, not confusion, not the helpless fog that had surrounded me since Dorothy died. This was pure, clean anger that burned through every bit of doubt in my mind. For 3 years, I'd let them take advantage of my grief. I'd signed papers I didn't read, handed over control of my money, become a servant in my own home. I'd told myself they were helping me, that I needed them, that I was lucky to have family who cared. But this wasn't care. This was theft, manipulation, fraud. They wanted to put me away so they could take everything I'd worked for, and they'd found a corrupt doctor willing to help them do it. I put the folder back exactly where I'd found it, closed the drawer, and walked to my small room. I sat on the edge of the narrow bed and stared out the window at the yard Dorothy and I had planted together, the trees we'd watched grow, the flower beds she'd tended with such love. That night at dinner, I watched Eugene and Nancy differently, really watched them. Eugene checking his expensive new watch, Nancy scrolling through photos of her latest shopping trip on her phone. Both of them completely comfortable spending money they hadn't earned, while planning to have me declared incompetent and locked away. "Dad, you're quiet tonight," Eugene said, not looking up from his phone. "Everything okay?" "Just tired," I replied, cutting my food slowly. "Well, get some rest. You've got that doctor's appointment next week, remember?" Just a follow-up. I nodded, but inside, I was planning. I had less than a month before they filed that guardianship petition. Less than a month to figure out how to fight back. For the first time in 3 years, I wasn't just surviving. I was preparing for war. The next morning, after Eugene and Nancy left the house, I picked up the phone and called my old friend Vernon Walsh. We'd worked side by side at the plant for 35 years. If anyone would help me, it would be Vern. "Gerald?" Vernon's voice was surprised. "Jesus, I've been trying to reach you for months. How are you holding up?" "Vern," I said quietly, "I need your help. Can you come over today? And don't tell anyone you're coming." Vernon showed up that afternoon looking exactly like the reliable friend I remembered. Gray hair, steady hands, the same concerned eyes that had watched out for me on the job for 35 years. When I showed him the folder and those bank statements, his face went hard as steel. "Gerald, this is criminal," he said, flipping through page after page of transactions. "They've stolen $65,000 from you in 3 years. And this guardianship thing, this is fraud, pure and simple. We spent the afternoon documenting everything. Vernon helped me photograph the assisted living documents, the fake medical evaluation, the email correspondence between Eugene and Dr. Coleman. Then he made a phone call to his nephew Brad Coleman, who worked as a paralegal at an elder law firm downtown. Brad specializes in financial elder abuse cases, Vernon explained. He's seen this before. The next morning, I told Eugene I needed to go to the bank for some routine paperwork. He offered to drive me, but I insisted I wanted to walk, needed the exercise. What I really needed was privacy. At First National Bank, I sat down with Carol Stevens, the same loan officer who had helped Dorothy and me refinance the house years ago. "Carol, I need to see every transaction on my accounts for the past 3 years. She looked concerned. "Gerald, that's going to be a lot of paperwork. Are you sure?" "I'm sure. And I need to open a new account that only I control." When the printer finally stopped, Carol handed me a thick stack of papers. 47 pages, she said quietly. I read through every single page right there at her desk. 3 years of my life, $65,000 of my retirement money, gone. Restaurants, jewelry stores, electronics, clothing, online purchases. All of it bought with money I'd earned in 35 years of honest work. "Carol, I need to transfer what's left to my new account immediately," I said, "and redirect my Social Security starting next month." She checked her computer. "There's $347 remaining in your current account. $347 out of $65,000. They'd left me with barely enough for a week's groceries. "Move it all," I said, "and order me a new debit card for the new account." While we handled the paperwork, Carol gave me something unexpected. The business card of the elder abuse attorney her bank worked with. "Gerald, what I'm seeing here, there are laws against this. You don't have to just accept it." My new debit card arrived the following Tuesday. I activated it immediately, then sat in my small room and felt something I hadn't experienced in 3 years, control over my own money. Friday afternoon, Vernon brought Brad Coleman to my house. Brad was sharp, professional, maybe 30 years old, and he knew exactly what we were dealing with. "Mr. Fisher, your son has committed multiple felonies," Brad explained, spreading the evidence across my kitchen table. "Financial exploitation of an elderly person, fraud, conspiracy to commit guardianship abuse. With this documentation, we can file both criminal and civil charges." "What are my options?" I asked. "2 paths. Criminal prosecution. Eugene faces serious prison time, and Nancy gets charged as an accomplice. or civil resolution. We force full restitution and get you legal protection going forward. I thought about that. Eugene was still my son, even after everything. What would civil resolution look like? Complete repayment of the $65,000 with interest and penalties. They vacate your property immediately. Permanent restraining order, preventing them from accessing your finances, and if they violate any terms, criminal charges automatically proceed. That evening, I barely slept. The confrontation was coming, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt ready. Monday morning, November 11th, Brad arrived with his briefcase. Eugene and Nancy were in the living room, Eugene on his laptop, Nancy scrolling through her phone, both completely comfortable in the house they'd been planning to steal from me. "Eugene, Nancy," I said calmly, "I'd like you to meet Brad Coleman. He's an attorney specializing in elder financial abuse." I watched the color drain from both their faces as Brad opened his briefcase and began laying out the evidence. Bank statements, receipts, the fake medical evaluation, the guardianship petition, printed social media posts showing off purchases made with my money. "This constitutes felony financial exploitation under Wisconsin law," Brad said in his calm, professional voice. "The total amount unlawfully taken is $65,000, plus interest and penalties." Eugene tried to argue. "Dad, we're family. We've been taking care of you. Taking care of yourselves," I corrected, "with my money." Nancy started the tears, but they didn't work anymore. Brad presented the civil agreement, full restitution of $65,000 at 6% annual interest, monthly payments of $1,100 for 5 years. You vacate this property within 30 days, restraining order, preventing access to Gerald's finances, violate any terms, and criminal prosecution proceeds immediately. It took 4 hours, but they signed. Eugene got a job at a warehouse. Nancy found work in retail. They moved into a small apartment across town. No more fancy lifestyle funded by someone else's retirement. Eugene's first payment arrived. December 1st, $1,100, right on time. Now I'm back in my master bedroom, managing my own money, living my life on my terms. My pension goes into my account, all $2,200 a month. Vernon and I go fishing twice a week. I've joined the woodworking group at the senior center. My granddaughter Joyce drives down from Chicago every other weekend to check on me, but not because I need supervision, because we're family, real family. To any man out there facing something similar, family members exploiting your finances, treating you like a burden instead of showing respect, here's what I learned. It's never too late to fight back. Document everything. Get legal help. Don't let guilt stop you from protecting what you earned. At 62, I thought my fighting days were over. I was wrong. Sometimes the most important fight happens when you're older, when you have to stand up to people you love who are hurting you. Take control. Get help. Fight for your dignity. You're worth it. Don't mistake. Family guilt for love. Real family protects your dignity, not exploits your vulnerabilities when you're grieving. Your retirement money isn't their inheritance while you're still alive. You earned every dollar through decades of hard work, and you deserve to control how it's spent in your golden years.